And welcome everyone to game number 2 of the MSL Code Silver Winners Bracket Finals. This is game number 2 between Bean and Glenn. Both notable first names. We have Bean from the Ender series and Glenn as in Glenn Beck. Sorry, that's word association test. Glenn equals Beck. I'm not really sure, I never watched that show. Anyway, we are here on Whirlwind. This is one of the largest maps in Starcraft 2. It's characterized by expansions all over the place. The fact that it's a 4-player map means that you don't know exactly where to scout at the very beginning. You have a pretty easy to defend natural, by all things considered. It's also quite spacious, which means that muted harassment can do quite well here, although there's not as much on the back side. There's not a lot of room to sneak around in the back, so it's harder to sneak in there, but the front areas are much more vulnerable to drops and things like that. It's been in the map pool for a little bit, in fact quite a while, and it's pretty solid, so I'm excited to see on this large map perhaps a little bit more of a macro game. Generally the scouting distance, as you can see here, scouting the wrong direction first. Actually, to be fair, he scouted the right direction first, but because overlords move at the speed of negative something, I'm not entirely sure. Even this racing overlord here with its crazy spikes, totally way slow. And so he scouts the wrong way. His opponent actually is going to be scouting the correct direction first, but it's that longer scouting time that means that you're much less likely to see some sort of a cheese, such as a 6 pool or a 10 pool or any sort of small number, like single-digit pool. What you're also likely to see is much more macro-oriented play because of that. We see the 14 hatch, 14 pool going down again from Bean. And we see what looks to be a Forge expand, or maybe a Nexus first. He's got a lot of money. Is he going to go Nexus first? Please go Nexus first. That's very gutsy. I like it. I like that play. Do it. Do it. Come on, probe. Come on, guys. Yes! Nexus first. Love it. Because he had not been scouted, he knew he had a little bit of time, and he's just going to get some extra damage done. I don't actually know if I did the intros. We have in the top left-hand corner of the map the player who is currently up 1-0 in this set, the green Zerg player, Bean. And I guess of any race, Zerg looks most like a Bean, I guess. His opponent up here in the pink, as the Protoss, is Glenn. I always thought it was cool watching Protoss buildings warp in. If only I could send stuff to myself like that, I would feel substantially awesome. Okay, so here I have a little bit... Okay, whew. I was going to say, here I have a little bit of it... Okay, never mind. I do still have a little bit of an issue here. This is a really, really weird wall. I'm just going to say that. Just said it. That's how I feel about it. Usually you want to do a normal wall so then not all the units can hang out up here. It does make a nice little concave, I guess. But generally it just takes additional units or buildings to wall off. And I don't actually think that this is part of this is a wall either. So there needs to be another pylon here, or like here, wherever it would actually fit. I don't think that's quite... It might be closed. It's hard to tell. Nope, neither of them. So I got some issues with the wall off, but other than that, you know, it's a good idea. Nexus first, then put a wall. Ooh, and old school style. This is how I used to play StarCraft. If you don't win, it's probably because you don't have enough cannons. That's how I definitely played in my youth, and there's nothing wrong about that. I feel like photon cannons were much better in Brood War. I don't know, just throw a comment in there, give me a thumbs up or something, be like, man, photon cannons in StarCraft 1 and Brood War were so good. Now, not as good. I mean, they're still okay, but maybe it's just static defenses as a whole have been debuffed. So the Lings are going to be coming again. Once again, a lot of aggression, but there are drones behind this, so not worried too much about the number of Lings here. He's going to try to get something done. 12 Lings is enough to be worried about, but not enough to be astronomically unmanageable. The issue here is that this isn't a wall. This one's a little bit protected. This is protected. We got enough cannons, actually. And we should have production here. And I also like to point out that Glenn is in fact ahead on the economy because of that Nexus first, and the fact that Bean has actually been producing units instead of drones. Yeah, okay, see, we have another 10 Lings coming out. He's going to be aggressive yet again. Bean is very much so favoring the early aggressive style of play. Nothing wrong with that. It's a little bit different than what we see as the norm right now, but it can, in fact, make for some very, very entertaining games, and I'm always a fan of that, because entertainment is key. We have 2 more gas geysers going down, so he's now all the way up to all of his gas geysers already. That's indicative that he's going to be going for some sort of tech. He's already getting those upgrades down. He's got a whole bunch of Chrono Boost kind of hanging around. He's been spending it a little bit better than he was previously, actually, but Chrono Boost, all these upgrades. Double Forge with Chrono Boosted upgrades, man, makes the other races so sad. Scouting Zergling sacrifices itself for the cause. And that other Zergling finds out that that's not actually a wall. That was scouting information worth knowing. Ooh, is that a Phoenix? Mothership Core. Is he gonna notice that's not a wall? He needs to build a pylon somewhere over here. Please build a pylon. Warp Gate, that'll help. He can build his Zealot, that'll also help. Behind this we see additional drones and then additional lings. So he's definitely committed to this attack. Checking out the army sizes, his army is vastly superior in terms of value. He is ahead in the unit count and the food supply as well. However, lings, unless they get that good engagement with the kind of wraparound concave, they need a lot of surface area to be effective. If this, for instance, was a complete wall, this would handle it no problem. The sentry could force field the Zerglings away from the buildings, and the photon cannons could just kill them slowly along with all the stalkers. As it is right now, he's susceptible to a run-by, which is what happened before. He's a little bit better protected against this, simply because of the map design, I feel. But other than that, I'm just really interested to see how exactly this goes. +1 Carapace is almost done. I feel like that should be the trigger of when, in fact, he goes. He now has 1-1. I would not be surprised at all to see him go and attack sometime soon. All the Zerglings frolicking together. They have wings. It's kind of gross. But that's how the Zerg is, you know, for the swarm. Going ahead and taking that 3rd base and getting +2/+2 started, this is a little bit longer term gameplay style than what we've seen out of Bean so far, at least in this series. But behind this, now Glenn, as he took both of those gases very early, he is in fact going ahead and spending all of it at the same time, and actually all of the tech trees. Generally, that's not seen at the exact same moment. Usually, to be a little bit more efficient, Protoss players and Injust players in general choose one tech path to be efficient with their resources. And then eventually, as the game progresses, or they see something out of their opponent that is different, they will, in fact, continue to chase down a slightly different tech path. But going for Robotics Facility, Stargate, and Twilight Council, it's a little bit interesting. This could be Charge Lot Void Ray. There's no Robotics support bay as of yet, or a Colossus Den, as some like to call them. We do have a Oracle here getting a lot of damage done, actually. 3 kills. It's not as much as it could have been, but Bean was quite well protected with these spore crawlers. Remember, Oracles, while they do a decent amount of damage, they actually do a lot of damage. They don't have very much hit points, and they actually die very quickly to most anything. So, good job there, and I think that's actually why Bean was not, in fact, moving out and attacking as much at the exact moment, as he was worried about additional things. Glenn also, man, things are going a lot better for Glenn this game. He knows, in fact, that there's a giant thing of Zerglings right outside of his base, and it looks like he's just going to go ahead and straight up engage this. If he could get some decent force fields, he could actually trap a lot of them there. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, but he does chase them out. He's got a lot better intel at home, but +2/+2 is just about ready to finish for Bean, which means he's going to be up 1-1 on his opponent. Again, he's going to be starting that infestation pit. That means he can go up to Hive sometime in the near future. The Spire is already done. It is, of course, +1 melee. Is that something we've seen out of Bean each and every time? And now here come the mutas, the mutaplay. Mutaling is very, very common and very effective. You usually see it more against Terran and Zerg. Terran, you see it because you force the opponent to go something that can shoot down mutas, which is actually just Marines most of the time. and then what kills Marines better than Banelings? And if you've ever watched the YouTube video called Banelings, then you know that Banelings are super good against Marines. And so what you do is you force out a lot of units that are going to be good against, or very bad against something that you build. In ZVZ, you see kind of the same deal, as Zerglings are used to help keep everything kind of in check until a big Muta engagement happens. We do have the flock of Mutas here at the back. Right now it's not a big enough number to be super threatening. A single cannon should be able to chase that away. Yeah, doesn't need to bring everything back, actually just the stalkers. That's actually leaving everything more unprotected than it should be. But as of right now, the DPS of that many Mutas is not that threatening. Instead, he's going to be producing 8 Corruptors at a time. And going to be trying to get a run-by here now that there's no... He needs another force field! Another force field! Oh, there's no more force fields there. That's frustrating. Still a decent engagement. A lot of these Zerglings are going to get in. I don't think he's going to lose tons and tons of probes, though, as the engagement angle is still really bad. The Zealots here helping contain things quite a bit. I'd like to point out that Zealots can act like force fields. Notice that none of the Zerglings could walk past this line because of this warping of Zealots. They cost a lot less gas than a sentry, and they're a lot easier to micro. So sometimes Zealots are force fields. It's complicated. They don't last perfectly long. But that is something to keep in mind, especially if you're low on gas, and especially if you're doing an Immortal Sentry all-in, as you should properly reinforce with Zealots instead of additional sentries, just because you can afford a whole bunch more of them, and they still offer the space control that you need for an Immortal Sentry all-in. So a lot of units perished there for Bean. Units lost. Look at that. The efficiency of the Protoss army as it continues to tech up is quite astonishing. But I feel like at this point in time, Glenn should actually be out and about. He should be moving and doing something. He's got to be careful that he doesn't engage too much on creep, or that he doesn't offer a really good surround for all these lings. But other than that, he's got a lot of stalkers. He's got a decent number of void rays. And I think he should be able to take care of this, actually, with not too much of a problem. I'd also really like to see this Oracle go out and do a little bit more, even if just to do the Revelation ability, which allows you to see what the other unit sees for a little while. It's kind of like the Parasite ability in Brood War, but with a time limit instead of without a time limit. That's mostly it. So single Stargate continuing to produce Void Rays, or no longer producing. He looks like he's happy with 4, and instead he's going to be spending all of his gas on Colossi. And Colossi are quite good against most of the units that Glenn has seen so far, but not particularly against these flying ones, considering they can't shoot up. I oftentimes wondered why, maybe not wondered why, I thought it would be awesome. Colossi are standing so high up in the air, I feel like they should be able to do splash damage on air units that are close to them, that are in the way of them shooting down. So, you know, for instance, the Corruptors are right up on top of the Colossi, and the Colossi is shooting Zerglings at its feet. I feel like the lasers should do damage down there as well. Something interesting to point out, we do, of course, have additional expansions from both of these players, and this is a ninja expansion. I would have liked to have seen this with how slow this army is, because it's based around robotics bay units. And this is what's going to be happening now, is that the base is going to die and that he's going to counterattack. So, good creep spread. This would actually help out a lot, but right now his army is split up, and Colossi, Zealot, Archon, Mothership, Void Ray, Sentry, Immortal, Stalker, Observer is actually quite good. We like to call this a Protoss Death Ball. And this is very much a Wings of Liberty style thing. Look at how the Zerglings melt. There's only one Colossi here. And it's already got 11 kills. So this is the Death Ball, and this is what happens when you spread your army apart. You can't engage with either part of it because either half will die immediately. Here, the Colossi should be able to get sniped here really quickly. He needs to turn around and start fighting. Just micro, just the Colossi. Yeah. So the Zealots here are helping keep the Zerglings off of that Colossi. The Colossi looks like it should go down here sometime soon if the correct target firing will go down. Yeah, there, it's gone. No, it's not actually. That was another Void Ray. Wow, this is an invulnerable Colossi. Look at him, he's a master. Excellent engagement so far. Why is that? The Corruptor's still not shooting him. I don't understand. Okay, he is now shooting it. Perfect. And it looks like now this giant death ball. So, this is going really well for Glenn. That's about all I can say. I was saying a little bit about how this is a Wings of Liberty style composition. Wings of Liberty was a game. Clearly, it's almost the same game as Heart of the Swarm, but some of the subtle differences actually make a really big deal, especially towards the later stages of the game. And the additional mobility that most of the races have, and some of the additional things, it's much less about getting your giant money composition, your giant perfect army, and going and fighting it out in one battle. Heart of the Swarm is a lot more about how many places can you be at the same time. For instance, you have the new medevac with the Afterburner ability allows Terran to be so much more annoying. Being everywhere. Drops are a constant threat and a constant annoyance. You have Vipers for Zerg that allow that money composition to be not near as strong if they have the opportunity to get those Vipers, as you can do Blinding Cloud and reducing all of the damage, all the ranged units to range 1, which is awesome if you're fighting against, Terran, where all their units are ranged. They also have the Abduct ability, so you can take those Colossi out. And then Protoss, they have the Photon Overcharge. They have, their skill rays are a little bit better in individual engagements rather than in base races, and so it's a lot easier to not necessarily need that giant death army at any given point in time, as you're more able to be across the map. And it looks like Bean here is going to go ahead and tap out, seeing that he is down 28 to 190, which I would say that's a pretty good indicator of you're being a little bit behind. And it looks like Glenn has gone ahead and tied things up for us, so we are now 1-1 in this best of 5. So I'm actually really excited to see who wins this one, as they've been good games from both players so far. And I will say, just as a quick bit of analysis, Glenn, you got to work on those walls. They're a little bit awkward, and I feel like that's been your vulnerability so far. And Bean, you stuck on lower tech units. You still had a lot of food in Lings, and against an army with the composition that you saw was coming, you had some decent things like Corruptors to be able to deal with that. But I feel like you need to have a little bit more high-tech units, something a little bit more beefy if you're going to have an engagement against lots of Colossi. So generally what you see is Roach Hydra and Viper, so you can abduct, there you go, those Colossi. Although Corruptors are still a decent choice, I would generally prefer to see a Viper, as they just are a little bit higher in utility against Protoss, at least, in my opinion. So there you have it. That's my opinion. I'm sticking with it, and we'll be back with game number 3 in just